It's now 1:30 and time to call to order the Oklahoma City Traffic and Transportation Commission. Roll call, Commissioner Clare. Here. Commissioner Littlefield. Here. Commissioner White. Commissioner Akula. Commissioner Schuline. Here. Commissioner Miller. Here. Commissioner George.
Here.
Commissioner Milner.
Here.
Okay, thank you. First item is the approval of the minutes for the May 18th, 2018 meeting of the Transportation Commission. Do I have a motion?
I move approval.
Motion by Commissioner George. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion? Could I have your votes, please? Motion's approved. Third item is the report on the licensed taxi and record service. We do not have a representative from Oklahoma City Police, so we'll move that to next month's meeting. Fourth item is the consent docket. There's nothing on the consent docket, so we will move on to items for individual consideration. First item is 5A, made by Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority. It's for all wards. Municipal Code 32-4096. Consider a recommendation to the Oklahoma City Council on an ordinance relating to motor vehicles and traffic, amending Division 4 impoundment of vehicles of Article 2 of Chapter 32 of Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010 by amending Section 32-96, vehicle constituting traffic hazard or obstruction. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? Staff report.
All right, you've got our comments before you. The primary intent of this particular ordinance is to clarify conditions when the Oklahoma City Police Department may have unattended vehicles that encroach into the operational area of the MAPS 3 streetcar and affect its operations towed.
Okay.
We've got the municipal counselor's office here if there are any questions relative to how the ordinance may be enforced if approved by the City Council. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Councilor, is there anything you want to add to that? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the request be approved.
Okay.
As presented.
Motion by Commissioner Schuline. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Clare. Any discussion? Could I have your votes, please? Thank you. Move on to 5B, made by Darrell Slate, Ward 3 and 5. Consider request for the installation of a traffic signal at the intersections of the Interstate Highway 44 Service Road and ramps and Southwest 119th Street. Is there anyone here to speak on this matter? If you would, please state your name, address, and you have 5 minutes.
Excuse me. My name is Darrell Slate, 12620 Jasper Avenue. I am the requester of this proposal. Thank you for the opportunity to come today. I am the one that requested this, along with many other concerned residents in the area. The current primary intersection of I-44 and Southwest 119th to resolve some serious traffic concerns. To be clear, the primary root cause is not a signal or stoplight or stop signs. It's a 30-year-old bridge, 2-lane, that was never designed to handle the traffic flow of current capacity today. It's in poor design, poor shape. Service roads are terrible, but that's a different subject. The sad part is this interchange is not even on ODOT's 8-year plan currently to have any kind of improvements and or replacements. So we have a long time waiting to try to resolve the traffic issues that are occurring there. But the current status is that we have all-way stop signs on both sides, all directions that traffic flows. This only stops traffic from backing up onto I-44 as you southbound. Every afternoon it's almost either onto I-44 or very close because every car is stopping, waiting, having to take time to make a left turn. The current growth plans of the entire area only continue. With the future of Amazon, as everybody's well known, the semis are only going to increase dramatically for that facility onto this stretch of road. The new on-queue that the city approved and now open only creates congestion, and even the new home construction on Williamson Farms and further west have to utilize this artery, just compounding. But the city also has a vested interest. There's a city park, South Lakes, that the city has built nicely, but the one thing that is not considered is South Lake is also a huge youth soccer facility. On weekends, they host massive soccer tournaments. It has 844 parking spaces, and if you've ever been to soccer, there's a game every hour, and that's basically 12 sets of parrots or cars per team times 2. It's a disaster. I have witnessed it backed up from the interchange all the way 3/4 of a mile west, trying to get the traffic flow out of the city park. It's just terrible. I fully understand the process of the time that it takes, as I was also involved in getting a traffic light at Southwest 119th and South Portland. It took 3 years from initial time to engineering to funding, and construction took 3 years. And during that time, there was 2 fatalities at that intersection. It's only a matter of time with the increased growth that this intersection is going to cause something serious on I-44, if not something else. So I urge this commission to approve this request and understand, not just based on the study, but understand the growth patterns. And ODOT's not going to fix this in the short term. Yes, enough people complaining about it, it'll get on the 8-year plan, but it's way down the road. Traffic signals will solve the temporary problem until such time. So I appreciate you looking at this proposal, and I urge you to approve it.
Okay, thank you very much. Staff report.
All right, you've got our comments before you. Just to give you a little bit of background history on this, back on April 20th of 2009, the Commission considered and approved a request from a citizen, Donald Rogers, to add the all-way stop control, which is currently in place at the ends of this bridge. Mr. Rogers had also made a similar request for I-44 and Southwest 134th Street at that same time. That too was approved. Both of those items were referred to ODOT because the Highway Department controls the ramps all the way to their terminal points, which is where they tie into city streets. And in this case, it was 119th Street. We did review the intersections with respect to traffic signal warrants found in the manual and uniform traffic control devices. The east side of this interchange will meet 2 of the warrants based on the full volume traffic conditions. It's eligible to be looked at using reduced volumes, since this posted limit on 119th Street is 45 miles an hour. The west side met 1 warrant for considering the use of signalization, but if we reviewed the west side based on the 45 mile an hour speed limit posted, it would meet 2 warrants again. One thing that we did do when we were looking at this is we reviewed decision sight distance, and that was a primary consideration when this item was considered back in 2009. The bridge that goes over I-44 has it really limits a driver's ability to see what's approaching from coming over top of the bridge, and that's one of the reasons why we advocated for the use of all-way stop when we did back in 2009. The one thing that using signalized traffic control would do is it could potentially, because we did do some modeling on this, it could potentially get to a situation where we incur some additional backups that might actually affect the highway, but those would be because there's not adequate lane capacity. I mean, like Mr. Slade addressed, the bridge, the 119th Street bridge over the interstate is just a 2-lane bridge. Another oddity that's out at this location is the frontage road on the west side of the bridge. On the north side is a 2-way road. In most cases, the state is leaning towards using 1-way frontage roads because it makes signalization and traffic control a simpler process, and you can move cars through more efficiently if you don't have 2-way frontage roads. So what we have done is we've reviewed this because it does meet warrants for the use of signalized control. We're recommending that the commission look at this and consider a recommendation to ODOT to consider using signalized traffic control at the bridge terminals, but also at the same time to widen the I-44 bridge structure and change the nature of how the frontage road on the west side is operated, change that to like a one-way flow. So at this point in time, I'm happy to answer any questions. I think one thing I need to bring up again is that, and I think because I skipped over it, was that without lane improvements, the use of a traffic signal might potentially increase overall delay for vehicles passing through the intersection. And if we bump up delay, then you run a greater risk of potentially backing cars up onto I-44. So for that reason, I think without doing roadway improvements, I'm not sure that standing a signal by itself would necessarily be the most appropriate thing. However, I do see that in the long run, something needs to be done, and widening the bridge, altering the use of the frontage road, and putting signalized control is probably the best solution. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the Commission may have.
Is there a motion regarding item 5B?
Well, the motion to approve this is not what the staff is recommending. They're recommending sending it to ODOT to have them do a study. Is that right?
It has to go to ODOT because the state will control traffic control on the ramps all the way to their terminal points where they meet city streets. In this particular case, it'll be at Southwest 119th Street. So the state has got to bless off on this.
Okay. So, but we need to approve this to do that?
Yeah, well, and the other thing is that ODOT they've started in a long-term process. I mean, at the very last page of this particular agenda is a tentative timetable for ODOT to start looking at or taking public comment on changes to State Highway 152 and to the I-44 corridor. So these are things that probably a recommendation from this commission would be something that could be included by the state when they run their analysis. But like I said, they're looking at corridor-wide improvements, and those are it's a lengthy process, and it's an expensive process once you start going to construction. It has to start somewhere.
Okay. Commissioner, do you have a motion or?
Well, yeah, I guess I move approval of the application with understanding that we're going to send this to ODOT with 3 recommendations that Stuart just mentioned: widening the bridge, adding the lights. What was the third?
The one-way?
It would be
Turn lane.
a recommendation to change the use of the frontage road on the west side to one-way.
That's my recommendation.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Stuart, what's the cost of 2 signals, and is that shared with ODOT, or?
Not necessarily. The state may decide to take the entire project all on their own, but, like I said, until it's studied, it's hard to say, because, if, say they were to do a significant corridor improvement project along I-44, they'll run into probably making ramp improvements at, like, say, 89th Street, 119th Street, 134th Street. There may be no cost to the city, and then again, there might be, the state may decide to approach the city to look at maybe some cost participation. It's hard to say at this point.
Anyone else?
I hear the comments, and the light that was just installed in the last 2 years had federal funding, because we went through the same process. And what are the opportunities of that? Because ultimately, if ODOT is not going to do anything in the short term, that's their long-term plan, they're not even going to meet for public support till next year, a year from today. The housing growth that is currently happening cannot add that many more vehicles to this. And I've got pictures, every day it backs up, cars are backed up across the bridge. Somehow the problem is the bridge. Get the traffic off the bridge, and you can control how long, because east-west, 119th, is going to have flow more traffic than the service roads. Get the traffic off the bridge, and you can effectively increase efficiency through this. The only way you're going to do that is not with the stop sign. That's where we're at today. I'd be more than happy to show these pictures, but, it's backing up today. This is my vehicle, and I'll be more than happy to pass it around, but I'm sitting on the interstate on the shoulder because it's backed up. And you can see there's no cars. It's a stop sign. That's the problem. I hear your comments that it may back it up. It's doing it today. I think engineers could effectively work with the signal easier and more efficiently during peak times versus a stop sign. So, thank you.
Yeah, to his point, I mean, one of the things that I see, if ODOT isn't going to do anything, if this maintains a 2-lane road, it is the traffic being stopped on the bridge that's causing the issue. This seems like an excellent study for roundabouts at both of these locations, because traffic's going to keep moving. You're not going to have stopped traffic.
Comment. ODOT's not going to, they're going to review this thing from one end to the other and see what really needs to be done. And what we do, if we do something now, it might interfere with that proposal. They won't know it'll have to interfere. If we get it to them now, they can look at it as it is now. So if it's a problem right now, that's worse as it is right now, that's how it needs to be received by them. Because they're the one that has control over what happens out there. Now, you've already contacted, I saw where you saw Kevin Bloss, the division engineer at 7, and ODOT, it's just a matter of a letter. Now, as far as getting it on an 8-year program, that might take a commissioner, a highway commissioner, notified or something, tell them how important it is. That's how you get those things on those agendas. But until you get what ODOT ultimately is going to be responsible, and the funding could come from them plus FHWA, and if the city participates too, you'll get a better overall product, if you will, by letting it play itself out with all those involved. And just like you said, if I'm hearing you right, as far as any backup, I mean, the stop signs right now is as safe as it can be for what's happening out there now as far as safety. The signals don't guarantee that safety, because you can still come over that bridge with a green light and the person turning left on that 2-way frontage road. Until that's changed to a 1-way frontage road, you're going to always have that. And then the fact that you don't have left turn bays, how are you going to, what interval are you going to put in your signal to do that? So you're going to have delay way more than what you're experiencing now. So I'm saying let the experts look at it, and let's just notify them we've got a problem, and let's help us come up to a solution.
Stuart, if it's okay, let me verify. Anything we do today still has to go through ODOT. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So we have our hands tied. We can approve this, we can make a recommendation to them, but at this point in time, there's really nothing we can do because ODOT supersedes anything that we would do.
That's correct.
Okay. So that's kind of where we're at. So we've got a motion, we have a second. Unless there's any other discussion, since our hands are tied, I'd ask for a vote. So at this time, could I have your vote? Basically, we've done what we can today. Okay. Thank you. Let's go to item 5C. Peter Schaefer with Kaiser Grateful Bean Cafe and Traffic Management Division, Ward 6. Consider request to, 1, remove all 45-degree angle parking on the south side of Northwest 10th Street between North Dewey and North Walker Avenue. 2, establish a reserved parking space for the physically disabled on the south side of Northwest 10th Street from approximately 95 feet west to 127 feet west of the west curb line of North Walker Avenue. 3, establish an electric vehicle charging station space on the south side of Northwest 10th Street from approximately 127 feet west to 160 feet west of the west curb line of North Walker Avenue. 4, establish a 2-hour time limit park on the south side of Northwest 10th Street from approximately 30 feet east to 115 feet east of the east curb line of North Dewey Avenue. And 5, remove the 30-minute and 2-hour time-limited parking controls on the east side of North Dewey Avenue between Northwest 10th Street and Northwest 11th Street, and replace them with a no parking anytime restriction. Is there anyone here to speak on the matter?
Yes, sir.
We need your name and address, please, and you have 5 minutes to speak.
Pete Schaefer, 1039 North Walker, here representing the interests of Kaiser's Grateful Bean Cafe. like to concentrate, please, on item number 3 of C. Charging station space. We are not asking that the city, excuse me, advance pay now or in the future anything for a charging station. We are simply asking for the opportunity at Kaiser's Grateful Bean Cafe to cause to be erected a charging station on city property, which would be operated by Kaiser's. The expense for the charging station would be Kaiser's. The expense for maintenance would be Kaiser's. The expense for electricity would be Kaiser's. If this commission approves this, this would be the first approval, I understand, in the city of Oklahoma City for an electric vehicle charging station on city property. It's a win for the citizens of Oklahoma City. It's a win because, for no other reason, the streetcar goes right past Kaiser's and will in the future. It's win all around. Win, win, win. So I would respectfully ask that this part in particular be granted in addition to the other things.
Okay, anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Staff report?
All right, you've got our comments before you. As you heard from Mr. Schaefer, that he will be basically following up this application, if approved, by seeking approval of an administrative revocable permit, which would allow for the placement of a private facility like a charging station that he described within the city's public right-of-way. The other items that are in this agenda are, or particularly this item, we've got removal of 45-degree angle parking, which was previously authorized along the south side of 10th Street. All of that has been already removed as part of streetcar construction. We're going to be removing parking from the east side of Dewey between Northwest 10th and 11th Street. That's been done because the far west side of that road has been set aside for exclusive use for streetcar operations, which has forced the north and southbound lanes of traffic on Dewey into the east, which eradicates the possibility of putting or maintaining parking on the east side. We're looking at using standardizing the time-limited parking control on the south side of the block of 10th Street between Dewey and Walker, and going to 2 hours on that. And then there's one space for the physically disabled, which has been incorporated into the streetcar plans. And so basically this is a kind of, aside from Mr. Schaefer's portion of the applications, it's the first of many housekeeping applications we'll be bringing to the commission to address changes that were made in conjunction with the streetcar. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about this application.
Is there a motion regarding item 5C?
Mr. Chairman, I move the application be approved, all 5 parts.
Okay. Motion approved by Commissioner Schuline. Is there a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Littlefield. Any discussion?
A curiosity. It's noted in here an ordinance passed in 2017 regarding electric vehicle charging stations. Does that ordinance, it's not necessary for like a revocable permit or anything like that to erect something like that?
No, the commission's involvement in this process is the way that ordinance was written is the commission will review and then take action on approving spaces that would be reserved for purposes of charging electric vehicles. That's the way the ordinance is written, so that's why this is being brought forward to you.
So for it to actually come to fruition, it's possible that it would have to be heard, obtain a revocable permit?
Yeah, the revocable permit's an administrative process in this particular case. So, yeah, at this point in time, the commission's action will be final on that charging, on approving the use of that space for charging purposes.
Any other comments?
any city liability from that charging station, we're not dealing with that at all at our level. That will be for the trust, local trust. At the Board of Adjustment, I'm assuming that.
No, it won't go through Board of Adjustment. It'll just be a revocable permit. It's strictly an administrative process. The city uses administrative revocable permits for things like privately built signs that encroach into the right-of-way or things that may overhang the right-of-way, that sort of.
And this will be the first charging station on public property.
Put in by a private entity, yes. It's
So that,
since the
as far as
passage.
liabilities are concerned, has that been thought through at all? I mean, or not overthinking it?
Say that again.
Just whether or not liabilities are concerned, if that thing shorts out, and is it the city's problem or is it the business problem?
That would be a part of the permitting process. Those questions would be asked at that stage
Okay,
and handled through that process.
okay. Thanks.
Well, and the other thing to consider, too, is, just inherent in the name, it's a revocable administrative permit. So if there become issues with, like, the unit, if people don't operate it safely, or it becomes a maintenance problem, or it becomes damaged and isn't repaired, the city could always revoke the permit and cause whatever it is to be removed.
Any other comments? Okay, let's take a vote on item 5C. Could I have your votes, please? And it is approved. Thank you. Let's move on to item 5D, Kyle Morris, P.E., CEC Corporation. Consider request to establish a 90-degree angle parking within a proposed on-street setback parking area on the north side of Northeast 40th Street from approximately 90 feet west to 232 feet west of the west curb line of North Lincoln Boulevard. And, number 2, establish one reserved parking space for the physically disabled within a proposed on-street setback parking area on the north side of Northeast 40th Street from approximately 171 feet west to 187 feet west of the west curb line of North Lincoln Boulevard. Is there anyone here to speak on this? Okay, thank you. Staff report?
All right, you've got our comments before you. The design in this particular case calls for the use of 20-foot deep parking spaces, but the applicant is also proposing an additional 12 feet behind these spaces adjacent to Northeast 40th Street for maneuvering purposes. Northeast 40th Street is dead ends further to the west, so this is a low-volume road. The applicant, like I said, is providing the required number of, at least meeting the minimum requirements for the number of reserved spaces for the physically disabled, and they're providing 90-degree angle parking such that drivers should be able to maneuver in and out of it easily without affecting traffic operations on Northeast 40th Street. So if approved, the only supplemental recommendation we have is that if it's approved, it would require dedication of either public right-of-way or roadway easement in order to sufficiently cover the 5-foot walk adjacent to the angle parking places, which is required by code.
Okay. Is there a motion regarding item 5D?
I move to approve the motion with the understanding that the dedication of public right-of-way or roadway easement is sufficient to fully cover the proposed setback parking spaces and sidewalks by the applicant.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Miller with a modification subject to staff recommendation. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner George. Any discussion on this matter?
Does the applicant have to agree to that now or not here?
Well, the applicant's representative is here.
Oh,
Could you come up to the mic, please? And please state your name and address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, my name is Kyle Morris. I'm with CEC. I'm an engineer on the project, and that's 4555 West Memorial Roadway. And your question was regarding the easement. I haven't discussed that with him yet, but I expect that a roadway easement will be acceptable. That's not official yet, but to maintain the sidewalk, is my understanding.
Well, it's because the 5-foot minimum width sidewalk is required by code, but also if there's not an easement adjacent to it available for public purposes, the city wouldn't be in a position where we could place any sort of regulatory signs in order to control it, because, you'll need the sign that designates the reserved space for the physically disabled, and there may be someday in the future when someone approaches the city and wants to get some sort of a parking control, whether it's time-limited, metered, any such other thing. But, that's one of the reasons why that needs to be in place, it's so that we can place things.
Place signs, maintain the signs, and all that. Okay, I understand.
Carl, if you would fill one of these out.
Absolutely.
Just over here. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve. Could I have your votes, please? Motion's approved. Move on to 5E, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., to consider a request to, 1, establish all-way stop control at the proposed intersection of North Oklahoma Avenue and Northeast 85th Street. 2, establish a mid-block pedestrian crossing on the proposed North Oklahoma Avenue approximately 225 feet south of the south curb line of proposed Northeast 85th Street. 3, establish a mid-block pedestrian crossing on proposed Northeast 82nd Street approximately 295 feet east of the east curb line of the North Broadway Extension Service Road. And 4, establish a mid-block pedestrian crossing on proposed Northeast 85th Street approximately 555 feet east of the east curb line of the North Broadway Extension Service Road. Is there anyone here to speak on this? Your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Caleb Morgan with Johnson Associates, 1 East Sheridan, Oklahoma City. We appreciate you hearing this item, and we appreciate staff working with us on this item, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Staff report.
Action on these items will be at the discretion of the commission. The items that are being proposed are all on future roadways. At this point in time, it appears that this will be just in a commercially developed area. So we really don't have any further comments to offer. We would recommend that if it's recommended for approval, that it be subject to staff recommendations, which is the applicant bearing the responsibility for the preparation of the public improvement construction documents and for the construction of all improvements in conformance with city standards and with the Americans with Disability Act.
Okay. Is there a motion regarding item 5E?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve it with staff's recommendations.
Okay. Commissioner Miller has made the motion to approve with staff recommendations. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner George. Is there any discussion? Okay. Could I have your votes then? We have a motion to approve. Thank you. Motion is approved. Move on to item 5F, Daniel Wynn, Pre-Construction Engineer, Division 4, El Reno Residency, Oklahoma Department of Transportation and Traffic Management Division. Consider request to, 1, ratify a traffic signal at North Sewell Avenue and Northwest 50th Street. 2, establish a no-turn on red restriction on the northbound North Sewell Avenue at Northwest 50th Street. And 3, establish a no-turn on red restriction on the private driveway of the north side of Northwest 50th Street opposite North Sewell Avenue. Is there anyone here to speak on this? Staff input?
All right, you've got our comments before you. The traffic signal in question, it's noted in your staff report that the Commission's action in this particular case is to ratify its construction. It was included as a part of the Broadway extension improvements, and that added this particular traffic signal. The second and third parts, which is establishing the no turn on red restriction, those were generated at the staff level, and those came out of our field investigation when we went to grab photographs and do some site distance measurements at the location. We noted that the bridge railing system and the curvature of the bridge severely restricted sight distance, so anyone attempting to make like a turn on red would not be able to see what was approaching. So for that reason, and purely for, basically it's really required for safety, the no turn on red restriction really is necessary in order for this to operate safely. One of the north approach is basically a driveway coming out of a private business, and It just happens to be opposite a Sewell Road, which is on the south side. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on this application.
What, is there a motion regarding item 5F?
I move to approve all three requests.
Okay. A motion by Commissioner Miller to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second by Commissioner Schuline. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, we have a motion to approve item 5F. Your votes, please. Motion's approved. Let's move on to item 5G, Traffic Management Division, Ward 8. Consider request to, 1, change the de facto speed limit on Highland Park Boulevard between North Pennsylvania Avenue and North Pawnee Drive from 30 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour. 2, change the de facto speed limit on North Pawnee Drive between West Memorial Road and Northwestern Avenue from 25 to 35. And 3, ratify always stop control at the intersection of Highland Park Boulevard and North Pawnee Drive. Is there anyone here to speak on this? Staff input?
All right, you've got our comments before you. What we did in order to come up with recommendations as far as setting speed limits on these roads, which were built as part of the Chisholm Creek commercial development, is we conducted spot speed studies on both Highland Park Boulevard and on Pawnee Drive. Highland Park Boulevard exists as a four-lane road to the west of Pennsylvania Avenue. It's got a posted 45-mile-an-hour limit. This is basically an extension that runs most of the way from Pennsylvania Avenue towards Western. The reason why it doesn't make it all the way to Western is because it intersects with Pawnee Drive. Both of these streets are four-lane, divided with a raised center median. Our speed studies indicated that the 85th percentile currently on Pawnee Drive is 35 miles an hour. It's slightly more on Highland Park, but I think that's mostly due to the fact that these areas have not really been fully developed yet. They are in the process of being built out. Since most drivers are adhering to the speeds that we are recommending, that's the reason for recommending that this commission set 35-mile-an-hour limits on both of them. Highland Park Boulevard, by its very definition, is a boulevard. It meets the city's definition for a boulevard or a through street. And the way our codes are written, the de facto, basically the standard speed limit we should be posting should be 30. However, in this particular case, it probably needs a higher operating speed, which is why we've recommended the 35, which is closer to the 85th percentile that's being driven. And as far as ratifying the always stop control that's in place over at Pawnee and Highland Park right now, that was installed when these roads were built. Those signs were included as part of the development. It's just never been to the commission before, and so we need an action to ratify them and include them in our records. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on our recommendations.
Is there a motion regarding item 5G?
Yeah, I move approval of the application.
Motion by Commissioner George to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Miller. Is there any discussion on this item? Okay, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner George, a second by Commissioner Miller. Your votes, please. Motion's approved. Item 6 on the agenda, comments from citizens. Do we have any citizens here for comment? If not, we'll move on to item 7, report and other items from the traffic commissioners. Commissioner Clare.
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Littlefield.
All is good in Ward 2.
Outstanding. Commissioner Schuline.
No, sir, nothing to report. Thank you.
Commissioner Miller.
I have nothing to report, sir.
Commissioner George.
No, nothing today. Thank you.
Okay. Officer.
I have nothing.
Okay. Stuart.
The only thing we've got to include is our standard monthly report on the locations of yield signs typically installed within residential areas under the administrative process. Other than that, nothing further to report.
Just real quickly, Stuart and I spoke a couple of months ago about there's some things that currently have to come before the commission that's really just a matter of housekeeping. And at some point in time, the commission really needs to sit down and take a look at diverting those items to Stewart's office instead of having to come before us. One of the items was a no vehicle with 2 axles.
Oh, the vehicle in excess of 2 axle restrictions?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that would probably be appropriate at the staff level.
So at some point in time, we need to just look at Stewart's office, just taking care of some maintenance issues instead of having our citizens come before and go through the whole process when it should be something very simple. And that's all I have. If that's all, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.